Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 48. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. So let's crack on. The first one is Adele versus Spotify. Adele has a new album. It is called 30. She has 12 songs and she would much rather you listen to those songs in a certain order. However, up until now, Spotify has insisted on shuffling albums or the tracks within albums. If you are in free range mode, essentially in Spotify, then obviously it will just keep shuffling the tracks. That's the way it makes its most money. Through recommending through the algorithm new tracks to keep you hooked. Obviously that filtered over onto the albums, but is not the way that an artist would like you to listen to them, because they put a lot of effort into that creative story or narrative through their tracks. Now Adele clearly has a lot of weight in this industry, so she's managed to get Spotify to change the user experience of the platform, which I think is absolutely remarkable. Obviously, Spotify has a relatively long history of being a frenemy of artists, obviously because of just the way it works, and it's become more and more and more a friend of the artist, in quotes. So that's really interesting. Well done, Adele, for getting a huge platform like Spotify to change its ways. Well done. The EU is getting really tough on targeted ads. So this is a draft plan from MEPs, obviously from the EU, and this says that, in brackets, quotes, large corporations must refrain from combining personal data for the purpose of delivering targeted or micro-targeted advertising, except, and I think this is the interesting bit, there is clear, explicit, renewed and informed consent. So it needs to be understood and it also needs to be renewed. So you can't just do click a button once and then they take your data forever. Also is targeted at minors as well, or at least protecting young people from this practice as well. What is the jeopardy here? Well, it's between 4 and 20% of your turnover if you get caught doing this, but it only applies to ginormous companies, so those that operate within 3 countries within the EU and also have $8 billion worth of turnover or $80 billion market cap, so big companies. And as far as users, you need to either have 45 million monthly users or 100,000 business users. So there you go. So that's it's really quite interesting. The second thing I thought was quite interesting about this is obviously the UK, because of Brexit, have opted out of this, so this doesn't really apply, although we are obviously taking on quite a lot of these because they make sense. However, there's lots of chat about the the UK becoming a sort of a data haven. Now that the EU is going a little bit more strict on this, then Ireland up until this point has been the place where you could get this done, and now it might become the UK. So that's a kind of an interesting conversation that's kicking off. Words of the year. So this is the Collins Dictionary Words of the Year, and it's heavily biased towards essentially social, COVID and tech. So the word of the year is NFT. Obviously that's an abbreviation, that's not actually a word, but there you go. But then again, neither is double vaxxed or climate anxiety. Those are 2 words. But you've got other things in there. If you're into your basically your Regency dress from the Regency period, then you will be a big fan of Regency core. Clearly hybrid is due to our working at home, etc, etc. And you can see crypto in there, and also the metaverse, which is no surprise. Obviously well, not obviously, but the Oxford English Dictionary also has vax as their word of the year. So there you go, some dinner party interesting stuff. Check out the link, some really nice animations on there. Yes, this is one of those kind of curious things where you're thinking, what am I doing with my life? A plot of virtual land sold for $2.43 billion. So this is in the platform or /game/experience, which is Decentraland. And it's a little bit like Sandbox. It's a little bit like all of those kind of virtual places where you can buy plots of land, you can build on them, you can get other people to build on them, you can buy add-ons, you can buy avatars, and you can buy skins for your avatars, etc, etc. So who bought this? Well, a company called Metaverse Group. Now the Metaverse Group in themselves are quite interesting, in that they have their HQ is listed as actually already in Decentraland, which is very meta, if you excuse the phrase. However, what the Metaverse Group do is they buy real estate in virtual worlds. So they are a one-to-one, basically, analogy of what happens in the real world. So they are buying up unused land in the metaverse because they know in the future it will become more and more expensive. So we're starting to see this transfer of real world jobs, quantity surveyors, real estate, lawyers, those sorts of things that are now dealing with property within the metaverse. So as I say here, if that hasn't made you feel old yet, I don't know what will. But there you go. 2.34 million is the new record, and that will be surely broken soon. So invest now. Black Friday, for the first time, has dipped in its revenues, which I think is interesting. So this is actually from Adobe, who are one of the people who power the analytics behind the internet, obviously, as well as other things. So this is their reports, well worth a look. This follows the holiday season in the US. So you've got things like Veterans Day and obviously Black Friday. As I record this, Cyber Monday hasn't happened yet. But what's really interesting here is for the first time, actually the revenue's gone down. So only by a lot, $100 million or so. So it's gone down from 9 billion last year to 8.9 billion this year. So that's obviously, broadly speaking, I think lots of people started their sales early. You can see the squiggly graphs on screen right now that actually the prices are starting to go down at the beginning of October. So people were starting to already use Black Friday, the vibe of Black Friday to discount. Obviously, you've got supply chain issues right now because of COVID, and also there's chip shortages. So a lot of tech was sold in these holiday bargain hunts. But what was really interesting also is that the revenue or the amount of money that was basically ordered via a mobile phone was up by 10% to 44%. So not quite 50% yet, but as we know, people are buying stuff through their phones, and that's carrying on. There you go. This is one of those deep science things, so I hope I don't absolutely muller this description, but been following energy for a while. I used to go to energy conferences and things. Now, this was the Holy Grail. We've heard about this, and now I just thought I'd bring it to you because I find this really interesting. So this is actually turning CO2, carbon dioxide, that stuff that we all hate in the atmosphere, which is the byproduct of burning fossil fuels, back into liquid fuels. So these are hydrocarbon fuels. So ethanol, I think, acetone are two of them, and there are more. Basically, long chain hydrocarbons. So the way this works is it actually uses a copper titanium, basically what I think is called an electrocatalyst. Now this is super efficient. It's nearly 50% efficient, and all it can really do is turn CO2 plus hydrogen back into liquid fuel. Now, one of the interesting things about this is, one is it's carbon neutral because you can burn that fuel again, and it will create the same amount of carbon dioxide that you generate, that you use to turn it back into fuel. So as soon as you start using this, it's a carbon neutral fuel. Obviously, we shouldn't really be using anything that you burn, but it's better than nothing. But also, interestingly, because you have to use electricity to do this thing, you can actually use solar electricity or surplus electricity that you've generated to power this process, and therefore it creates fuel. So you can actually use liquid fuel, to store electricity, essentially, or at least the energy that you created, rather than batteries. So you might find in the future that solar stations are using this process to turn CO2 in the air back into liquid fuel, which is high energy, and then when we need it, we turn it back into electricity again. So that's a really curious way of thinking about it, and I really love this graphic as well. So well done to the research team for putting that graphic together. And finally, the thing that you didn't even think you needed, because you probably don't, but this is a rat, or it's actually three rats. Three rats were trained to play Doom. So what somebody has done here is they've created what is essentially a giant mouse ball. So if you remember, in the olden days, a mouse would actually have a ball inside it that would rotate and let you know whether you were moving left, right, up or down, or whatever. So these rats, three rats, were trained on their own. They were just put in this little sort of cloth harness thing here, and they were allowed to walk around on this ball essentially as their exercise. And what they did was got a little sugary drink reward if they moved forwards, and if they stopped, or if they sort of did it too much, it would just give them, you see there's another tube there, it would just give them a little puff of air, which they go, oh, I don't particularly like that, and they would carry on moving. So obviously this was only a very short experiment. Quite literally no rats were harmed. They actually got quite a nice drink out of it, apparently. But what this whole proves is that once again, animals are probably far more adept at using technology than we think. But more importantly, can you train animals using virtual reality, and it seems you can. So if technology is something that we're going to give to animals in the future, and maybe they can become more free with it, then this is proof that they can probably now take on different environments, or at least be trained into different environments using virtual reality. Other than that, as the author will say, if you actually do follow the link, I'm not really sure why they did this, but it seemed like a good experiment to do. And there you go. And that's the last one. So every time Doom comes up, I'll always feature it somehow. There you go. And with that, we are done. Hopefully that was weird. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully that was interesting. And hopefully I'll see you next time.